Sounding Fluent.
Welcome to another episode of Sounding Fluent. I'm Seksit Pechinalert. Let's start with this week's RMUTP news. Dr. Natwaraponrat Siriwacharabun, president of RMUTP, presided over the fourth book distribution campaign. The campaign was designed in collaboration with Bangkok Biz News and Jula Book to provide books for low-income adolescents and youths and supports activities to motivate them to read. Free books and stationery were distributed to Khao Yai Industrial and Community Education College in Nong Chumpon Sub-District in Khao Yai District of Phetchaburi Province, with its director, Mr. Narong Rod Sung, representing the entire college. In this week's episode, I have to thank Guidable.co, and I'm taking you guys to Japan yet again. But this time, let's talk about the country's most famous sport. Yes, I'm talking about Sumo. Sumo is a Japanese wrestling style and by far the most traditional national sport Japan offers. If you are a sumo wrestler and you're successful, you'll be praised and celebrated like a pop star. From ancient times until this day, Sumo is an extremely popular sport among spectators and also a culture deeply rooted tradition that is still very much alive. The art of sumo is much more than striking poses and wrestling on a ring-shaped fighting ground made of clay. Sumo goes way back in time. It was originally invented around the Heian period, almost 1,000 years ago, to entertain the Japanese gods. In ancient times, they prayed to the gods for success and participated in Shinto rituals to ask about the gods' intentions. Sumo is rich in history and traditions that have evolved over the last centuries. Until this day, only men are allowed to train professionally as sumo wrestlers. The rules of a sumo match are easy to understand. Two sumo wrestlers come together in an elevated ring, which is called doyo, and the first rikichi who falls out of the ring or touches the ground with any parts besides his feet loses. Both wrestlers wear nothing but a wide loincloth, mawashi, and fight only with bare hands. Important to mention is that there are no weight classes or weight restrictions in sumo compared to other sports such as boxing. So weight gain is a very, very important part of the life of a sumo wrestler. Surprisingly, many sumo wrestlers only eat 2 meals daily and skip breakfast their first 3 to 5 hours of training sessions. They follow a very rigid and strict plan. So in regard to eating, they also have to be very disciplined. The most famous food a sumo wrestler eats is shango nabe. Shango nabe is a rich stew with many vegetables, meat, and tofu, as sumo wrestlers need to eat around 8,000 calories a day. This is the perfect meal to get a sturdy stature and eat healthy at the same time. It is also exciting that shango nabe is traditionally only served with chicken. Legend has it those sumo wrestlers would have to support themselves with their hands during a fight if they ate the meat of 4-legged animals beforehand. Ceremonies from times past are still an integral part of the wrestlers' daily lives. This is why we curated the most important ones that take place before the actual fight, which is often surprisingly short. Salt throwing. A ritual that is practiced to this day is that a sumo wrestler and his components sprinkles salt around the sumo ring to purify it. This symbol of cleansing and purification before every match shows their humility in front of the divine gods and asks them for mercy. Also, on a more practical note, salt is a drying agent and natural disinfectant because sumo fights tend to get quite sweaty. Sumo wrestlers dance Then both Rikishi perform a series of prescribed movements. They slowly squat down, clap their hands twice, rub them against each other, and then stretch their arms wide apart with the palms facing down. This ritual dates back to when sumo matches were held in the open air. The wrestlers would pull out tufts of grass to clean their hands with the rope clinging to them. With these movements, the Rikishi also showed that they were not holding any weapons. Drinking the water of strength. Water is also an essential part of sumo ceremonies. Wooden vats filled with water of strength are placed outside the ring for the wrestlers to rinse their mouths and symbolically cleanse their bodies. Often, sumo wrestlers repeat this and the prior procedures over and over again. The actual fight only lasts a few seconds in most cases, so mental preparation and unsettling the opponent are essential. Stomping procedure and staring. Next, they go to the center of the ring, lift one leg, stomp powerfully, and then repeat this movement with the other leg. This ritual stomping is a simple warm-up exercise that strengthens the lower body. The original purpose is said to have been to stomp the evil spirits into the ground, literally. Now, both wrestlers are almost ready for the fight. They squat down and stare at each other, controlling their breath. Then finally, they expel the air, only to fill their lungs again and hold their breath. This is when their power is at its greatest, and thus the conditions are ideal for them to lunge forward and crash into each other. Then how much money does a sumo wrestler make? Depending on skill and ranking, sumo wrestlers earn a huge amount of money. A good sumo wrestler gets between 1.1 and 3 billion yen per month. As there are 6 big tournaments in a year held in Japan, the winner receives more than 10 million yen. However, fame often comes at a price. The hard sport and the high body weight take their toll. Cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and complaints of intervertebral discs and joints can mean that many sumo wrestlers do not live beyond the age of 45. When a sumo wrestler retires, a special ceremony will be held. Final words about sumo wrestler traditions. Sumo is more than just a normal wrestling match. It is Japan's national sport, where ceremonies and competitions are closely interwoven. So whenever you do get the chance to visit a sumo match, make sure to go. For all people coming to Japan or wanting to travel here, this podcast is for you. A few things may seem weird, funny, or illogical on first impression, but they make so much sense. So let's take a look at some weird things in Japan. Interesting and weird things in Japan you may encounter. First, handling out tissues. When visiting Japan, you probably encountered people handing out pocket tissues on the streets. What may seem weird in the eye of the tourist or a Japanese newbie, companies, restaurants, or sports clubs use this technique to get people's attention. No talking on the train. While it may be common in your home country to take calls and happily chat on the train with friends, in Japan, it is seen as impolite. The thing is, no one will call you out, as Japanese people tend not to cause any trouble, but it's one of many unspoken etiquettes in this culture. Of course, there's an exemption to every rule, but especially during morning hours on weekdays, refrain from talking on the phone and set it on silent mode while riding the train in Japan. Taking off your shoes. This is a big one. When coming to Japan, you must take off your shoes when you enter someone's house or even offices and specific restaurants. The entryway is where guests and owners take their shoes off. The reason behind it is simple: not getting the floor dirty. In Japan, it is very common to sleep on the ground and eat meals on tatami mats, which are traditional Japanese flooring. Although not all households are furnished with tatami mats, because they are pretty hard to maintain, taking off your shoes for cleanliness is a significant sign of respect and is rooted in Japanese culture. Toilet slippers. Talking about not wearing your street shoes inside houses, the famous toilet slippers are provided for guests in restaurants, hotels, and many households. It may seem like one of the many weird things in Japan, but looking at the Japanese toilet history makes a lot of sense. Before Western-styled toilets entered the Japanese market, simple-styled squatty potty toilets were used. They're a bit more challenging to use with a higher chance of getting wet. However, after asking over 2,000 Japanese people about the necessity of toilet slippers, over 70% find them still necessary. Wearing masks. Long before COVID, many people wear masks on trains, parks, and streets. What seemed a bit odd at first makes so much sense. Japanese people are very polite and cautious regarding their stance in society. So, for example, having a cold and sneezing on the train causing other passengers trouble is a thing that Japanese citizens try to avoid. So wearing a mask protects yourself against colds and hay fever and avoid infections. It may seem like one of the many weird things in Japan, but it does serve a significant cause and is part of Japanese culture. Wet towels before meals. Another example of the weird things in Japan list is oshibori. These wet and often warm towels are handed out in restaurants and bars before meals. You use it to refresh your hands, neck, and face. But watch out. Even if you see some Japanese people wiping their faces with it, after oshibori etiquette, it is considered a bad form. Free public foot baths. When traveling through Japan, you may have encountered the word ashiyu. Ashiyu is the term for a Japanese foot bath and can be found in various places in Japan regarding the popularity of foot baths. Japanese citizens and travelers also adore them a lot. They are often built near tourist spots, so you can relax your feet from all that sightseeing you just did while soaking up in the atmosphere of your surroundings. Fake display food, shokuin sampuru, are astonishing, realistically looking food samples found in front of Japanese restaurants. They help non-Japanese speakers to order delicious food despite the language barrier and display what consumers can expect from a food order. There's a long tradition behind it. Even legends are being told that the craftsmanship of modeling plastic and wax parts into mouth-watering food samples is over 200 years old. Japanese customs and manners. Bowing. In Japan, people greet by bowing to one another. A bow can range from a small nod of the head to a deep bend at the waist. A deeper, longer bow indicates sincere respect, while a small nod is more casual and informal. Additionally, bowing with your palms together at chest level is not customary in Japan. If the greeting takes place on tatami floor, a type of mat, people get on their knees to bow. Bowing is not only used to greet, but also to thank, apologize, make a request, or ask someone for a favor. Most Japanese do not expect foreigners to know the proper bowing etiquette. A combination of a bow and shaking hands is usually expected from foreigners. Gift giving is a conventional part of Japanese culture. Different types of gifts are given on depending on the occasion. How the present is wrapped is essential. If not nicely packed, the present should at least be given in a bag, preferably in a bag by the shop the gift was purchased at. Gifts in sets of 4 are usually avoided because it is considered an unlucky number in Japanese superstition. To clarify, the Japanese word for 4 is pronounced the same as the word death. When handing over a present, both the gift giver and recipient use both hands. Table manners. The most important table etiquette in Japan is saying customary phrases before and after a meal. It is traditional for Japanese people to say itadakimasu, meaning I humbly receive or let's eat, before a meal, and goshiso-sama after a meal. These phrases not only mean thanks for the food, but also indicate the beginning and the end of a meal. If you are eating with Japanese people, try to say these phrases, as it is impolite if you don't. One of the fundamental chopsticks etiquettes is not to directly pass food from your chopsticks to somebody else's chopsticks or vice versa. It's also important not to vertically stick chopstick into food, especially into a bowl of rice. Additionally, it is not polite to wave your chopsticks above food dishes or to use your chopsticks to point at somebody. Two people should never pick up the same food with their chopsticks. Like, if someone is struggling to pick something up, you can't help them. This reminds the Japanese of a funeral ritual in Japan. It is utterly morbid. It is mannerly to lift small bowls of rice or soup when you eat to prevent dropping food. If you do not receive a soup spoon, it is acceptable to sip soup out of the bowl and eat the solid food with chopsticks. It is usual in Japan to make some slurping noises while eating noodles, such as ramen and soba. It is believed to taste better when making slurping noises. Shoes. Shoes are never worn in someone's home or on Japanese tatami flooring, mats. It is expected to take off your shoes in a restaurant, hotel, hot spring resort, etc. There will always be a place to put your shoes. In addition, you'll be given slippers to wear. There are often different slippers for the bathroom. You should never wear the normal slippers into the bathroom, if bathroom slippers are provided, and vice versa. Miscellaneous tips. The Japanese don't have loud public conversations on their mobile phones. People never speak on the phone in the train or in a shop. Most people refrain from speaking on the phone in the train or in a shop and keep their phone on vibrate. When going out for drinks, it is considered rude to drink before cheers or by saying kanpai. Since Japan is in an English-speaking country, speak slowly and be patient when speaking English. It is recommended to learning a few basic words of Japanese. It is strictly standing left past right on Tokyo escalators due to the Japanese tradition of having two opposite standards for everything. Osaka is standing right past left. Names. How do you use san, kun, and chan for Japanese people's names? The suffix san is a title of respect added to a name. It can be used with both male and female names, as well as with other surnames or given names. It can also be attached to the name of titles and occupations. Kun is used to address men who are younger or the same age as the speaker, usually in schools or companies. A male might address female inferiors by kun. It can also be attached to both surnames and given names. It is less polite than san and isn't used between women or when addressing one's superiors. Chan is often attached to children's names when calling them by their given names. It can also be used regarding kinship terms in a childish language. This is RMUTP English Online. I'm Seksit Pachinalert. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Sounding fluent.